I never thought a chance meeting with a millionaire would change my life forever. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It was a damp Tuesday morning, the kind that leaves a chill creeping through your bones. I could feel uncertainty tightening around my heart as I navigated through the crowded street, dodging bodies lost in their own worlds. The air was thick with the smell of rain-soaked asphalt and the distant hum of city life. That's when I saw him. He stood out like a lighthouse in a storm, tall and striking, with an air of confidence that drew everyone's eyes. The sunlight glinted off his designer watch, catching my attention and holding it captive. From a distance, he seemed to radiate wealth, power, possibility. I brushed it off at first. After all, what did I have to offer a man like that? But then, something inexplicable happened. Our eyes locked. It was electric. A rush surged through me, pulling my heart into my throat. I couldn't breathe. In that moment, nothing else existed. Not my struggles or my dreams, just the palpable energy between us. As I drew closer, I could hear whispers. Who is he? Where did he come from? His presence stirred confusion and curiosity among the people nearby. The barista, usually too busy to pause, fumbled with her coffee grinder, completely captivated. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. It wasn't just a polite grin, it was warm and inviting, like he knew exactly how lost I felt. I was struck. I felt a connection, this man of mystery, who moved like a shadow between the light and dark of his world. I took a step closer, my hands trembling. What did I want? Was it just intrigue? Or something deeper? As he walked towards me, I struggled to maintain my composure. My thoughts were a chaotic jumble. What would I say? Could I even speak? Right when I opened my mouth to greet him, a loud crash shattered the moment. A nearby construction site collapsed, debris crashing down, dust swirling in the air like a scene out of a disaster movie. People screamed, panic erupted. In that chaos, the millionaire transformed, his bright smile vanished. He turned sharply, eyes scanning the scene. He moved with purpose, pulling me with him as if I were a lifeline in the turmoil. Adrenaline coursed through my veins. What was happening? Why was I here with him? The crowd recoiled as tiles and steel rumbled to the ground. My heart hammered violently in my chest. The world tilted on its axis. I could barely keep up. This wasn't the chance meeting I'd daydreamed about. This felt like a twist of fate wrapped in shadows and light, forcing me to confront something I wasn't ready for, and just as suddenly as it began, everything went silent. I clutched his arm, breathless and wide-eyed. What now? Who is this man? Did fate really drop him into my life at this moment, or was it something more sinister at play? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As silence enveloped us, a stillness deeper than the chaos that had just unfolded surged between us. I looked into the millionaire's eyes, searching for an explanation, a hint of who he might be, but all I found was a flicker of something raw, vulnerability masked by the sheer force of his presence. Before I could process it, he pulled me closer, shielding me with his body against the wreckage that loomed behind us. Stay close. We need to get out of here, he urged, his voice steady yet laced with urgency. I complied, heart racing. The thud of emergency sirens grew louder as we navigated through the debris-strewn street, dodging gasping onlookers still trapped in their shock. I glanced back, wishing I could pause time and relive our moment of connection before chaos arrived. How had we spiraled from that electric gaze to a scene of destruction to souls in an indifferent, chaotic world? Then something unexpected caught my eye. A child, huddled behind a lamppost, her wide eyes glistening with tears, watched the pandemonium unfold. Instinctively, I hesitated, our pace faltering. The millionaire noticed my distraction and followed my gaze. Without hesitation, he stepped toward her, his demeanor shifting from protector to caretaker. "Hey there," he said softly, kneeling to meet her fearful gaze. "You okay? Did you get hurt?" His tone was gentle, and for a moment, I didn't recognize the powerful man who had just shielded me. This was someone else, someone with compassion woven into the fibers of his very being. She shook her head, squeezing a worn teddy bear tightly to her chest. I want to go home," she whispered, her voice barely audible against the sirens. "Let's find your parents," he replied, a determined warmth replacing the intensity of the previous moments. Gently, he extended his hand. "It'll help you." The child hesitated before reaching out, her small fingers wrapping around his. Something shifted inside me, a flicker of hope amid the chaos, the realization that perhaps this man wasn't just a figure of wealth and obscurity, but someone who could illuminate the darkness around us. When he turned back to me, I saw a different man, one grounded and resolute, the glimmer of vulnerability still lingering in the corners of his eyes. "Can you help?" he asked, glancing back at me. "We need to move quickly." I nodded, surprised by the surge of strength rushing through my veins. Together, we began searching through the crowd, calling out for the child's parents. My heart danced between fear and determination, gratitude blooming within me for this chance meeting that had become more than I ever anticipated. But as moments passed and the crowd thickened, I felt a tension knotting in my stomach. The child clung to his side, her small frame trembling. I could hear her soft sobs above the chaos, the sound tugging at the deepest corners of my heart. I wanted to shield her, to say that everything would be all right, but the uncertainty gnawed at me. Amid the attempts to locate her guardians, I caught snippets of frantic conversation, people recounting an explosion, others warning of further danger. The million-dollar facade around the millionaire began to crack. I could sense his frustration growing, an urgency that he couldn't completely conceal. "We're going to find them," he assured the child, though his voice shook slightly. Glancing at me, I saw a flicker of fear eclipse his earlier courage, and it sent shivers through my bones. They were supposed to be invincible, weren't they? Milestones and empires built on the backs of mere children and dreams, yet here we all were, fragile and exposed, teetering on the brink of a larger unknown. Then, just as I forced a smile to comfort the little girl, a sound cut through the air, a sharp crack, followed by a chilling rumble. My heart plummeted. Before I could react, the ground beneath us trembled. It rumbled like a beast awakening from slumber, and panic erupted anew. "No!" the millionaire shouted, eyes wide as he instinctively grabbed my wrist. The world tilted once more, and as chaos erupted into a whirlwind of screams and scurrying feet, I grasped the child's hand tighter as she clung to the millionaire. For reasons I could not comprehend, the trio of us felt inexplicably bound, a tethered assembly of broken pieces that somehow accompanied each other's journeys in the storm. Then, just above the roar, I heard a familiar voice calling for me. I turned, recognizing my sister's features through the haze, waving frantically from the other side of the panic. The sight should have brought relief, but dread washed over me as I realized how far away she was, trapped in the chaos. Heart racing and hands trembling, I looked at the millionaire, torn between the hope of safety and the fear of losing connection with the most precious people in my life. And as I opened my mouth to call out, I felt the tug of fate lurching dramatically forward, as if whatever fragile thread had entwined us was about to veer sharply again. In that moment, a shadow of realization swept over Muhat. If this chaos was only the beginning? What if destiny hadn't brought him to me for protection, but rather to reveal the truth about ourselves, a truth that held the power to unravel everything? The ground shuddered, and for a moment, time seemed to stretch, a fragile pause where the world around us receded into nothingness. My heart pounded in an uneven rhythm as I stood there, anchored between my sister, a lifeline I could barely reach, and the millionaire, who had taken on a new gravity in my mind. The child's small, frightened hand gripped tightly onto his, seemingly unaware of the storm swirling around us. "Can you see her?" I shouted, voice cracking against the cacophony. My eyes remained fixated on my sister, but she had disappeared back into the throng, lost amidst the chaos. Fear gripped me, sharp and suffocating. I can't let you go. The millionaire's words snapped me back to reality, but they did not quell the rising tide of panic. I felt a surge of frustration bubble within me. We have to save her. She needs me, I know, he replied, his voice steady despite the turmoil. But we need to stay together. We'll figure this out. His grip on my wrist tightened as if sensing my growing trepidation, but I couldn't help feeling a swell of resentment. Who is he to dictate our actions? Beneath the calm exterior of the millionaire hid layers of uncertainty, just as I was beginning to unravel. Yet his presence also stirred something within me, an urge to want to trust him, to believe that together, we could forge a path through this unpredictability. In one desperate heartbeat, everything shifted. The ground beneath us swayed again, more violently this time, sending waves of dust and debris swirling in a thick cloud. An agonizing cry broke through the noise, and I instinctively turned, scanning the wreckage for any sign of my sister. Help! It was her voice, but I could barely make out her figure. My body moved with a will of its own as I darted away, the millionaire's grip momentarily released as I rushed toward her. Wait! He shouted, but I was already weaving through the crowd, driven by an instinct deeper than fear. Each step felt like a mile as I urged my legs to propel me forward, past screams and cries, the air saturated with smoke and despair. Then I caught her gaze, the terror in her eyes fueling every ounce of urgency within me. Nat, I'm coming, I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat. She lifted her arms, and in that moment amidst the chaos an unwavering pulse of hope ignited. Behind me, the millionaire's powerful silhouette pushed through the crowd, his body a bulwark as he cleared a path. Stay close, he yelled, and a flicker of admiration ignited in my chest. Even as the ground shook and uncertainty loomed, he pressed forward with the determination of a guardian angel. But as I drew closer to my sister, the world around us fractured again. A second explosion erupted in the distance, rattling through the air like thunder, shaking the earth beneath our feet. The crowd surged backwards, a desperate movement of instinct as fear overtook rational thought. I felt myself swept into the waves of bodies, each one feeding off the panic. No. I screamed, looking over my shoulder at the millionaire fighting his way towards me. Don't let her go, stay still. The millionaire's voice erupted above the noise, and somehow, I found solace in the fierce protectiveness anchoring him. But in that moment, I lost sight of my sister, and with it, my world darkened. The distance between us expanded, her figure swallowed by the frantic press of bodies. Nat, I called, my voice drowned by the chaos. An overwhelming sense of dread washed over me. Just when I thought I might drown in despair, I caught a glimpse of hope as a stranger grasped my wrist firmly. Come with me. A young woman shouted, urgency cutting through the clamor. Her eyes held a fierce determination. We can get to safety, No. My sister, I struggled against her grip, but felt the weight of the moment take hold, the urgency eclipsing my instincts. The recognition of helplessness swept over me. Just moments ago, I had taken comfort in the millionaire's strength, but now, as the crowd spiraled into chaos, I felt utterly isolated, encased in a whirlwind of uncertainty and fear. Tears began to well, blurring my vision. I had to believe that my sister would make it, that the millionaire would find her, that things would not fall apart. But as the woman pulled me further away from the direction I so desperately wanted to go, the glitter of hope flickered dangerously low. Let me go, I yelled, my voice rising above the cacophony as I felt the grip on my wrist tighten. I wrestled against it, looking back, frantically scanning for any trace of my sister or the towering figure guarding all that I'd begun to care about. But just as everything seemed lost, a flash of brilliant light appeared above the crowd. It cut through the darkness like a sliver of dawn, and the air crackled with energy. I froze, transfixing on the glow. Look! Someone shouted, and I turned to see a path opening through the chaos. The beam illuminated the space as the millionaire appeared, his expression filled with fierce determination, but there was something else flickering behind his eyes, something familiar, and then, like the last fragment of a fragile dream swirling into oblivion, a small voice broke through my thoughts, grounding me anew. You're going to be okay. Who said that? I blinked rapidly, seeking an answer even as the earth trembled once more. But the shadows deepened around us, and the pathway of light began to fade, chaotic cries wrapping around us like tendrils of despair. In that moment of blinding hope and encroaching fear, I caught my Brea, the realization crashing over me. As the world shadowed into fragments, I stood teetering on the edge of trust and doubt, clinging to the last remaining threads that tethered my heart. Would we be swept apart like so many scattered remnants, or destined to forge a connection that would withstand the tempest and the resounding echo of another soul within? Begging me to remember, the millionaire had become something more to me than just a chance encounter. Just who was he really? What truth lay within the depths of his guarded eyes? The crowd surged like a living, breathing entity, a mass of fear and confusion clamoring for safety. And in the eye of the storm, I stood at the precipice of a decision that could fracture my heart irreparably. The blinding light began to recede, a flaring defiance against the encroaching shadows, offering flickers of hope even as chaos reigned around us. Nat. The desperation in my voice found a painful echo in the distance. Each agonizing second felt like a lifetime, a clock winding down against the backdrop of chaos. I squeezed my eyes shut, picturing her smile, her laughter, the way her eyes sparkled with mischief and love. Then, unexpectedly, a gentle touch brushed against my shoulder, soft amidst the tumult. I whipped my head around and found the young woman who had pulled me from the throng looking at me, her brow knitted with concern. I know this is hard. I lost someone too, she breathed, her voice a low tremor beneath the overwhelming noise. But if we don't get out now, we might lose everything. A haunting recognition flickered within me, the shared agony of loss uniting us momentarily in an unspoken promise. I can't, me sister, the words tangled in my throat. No one is lost forever. Her eyes locked onto mine, fierce and unwavering, revealing a soul burned by the flames of uncertainty and grief. We can't wait. We have to save ourselves first, or we'll be swallowed whole. A roar echoed behind us, almost primal, sending a fresh wave of adrenaline through my veins. I glanced back once more, desperate to find the shape of the millionaire pushing through the throng. He was a guardian, forged in desperation, and I felt that bond pulling at me fiercely. Yet what could I do now? The moment felt suspended in time, heart racing against the onslaught. Okay, I finally relented, the weight of the decision settling heavily across my shoulders. Lead the way. The young woman nodded, taking my hand and propelling me forward. As we navigated the chaotic mass, the ground trembled beneath our feet, each shockwave screaming predictions of instability. I let instinct guide me, trusting the pull of fate that led me further from the silhouette of my sister until just a glimmer of love tethered me to her memory, and my heart splintered into countless possibilities. We dashed for cover, dodging fallen debris and the shouts of desperate voices around us. As we turned down a narrow alley, the cacophony dulled slightly, the chaos of the crowd muted to a dull thrum. Exhaustion tugged at my limbs, but I couldn't slow down. What's your name? I asked, grasping onto a thread of connection to bolster my wavering spirit. Maya, she replied, glancing back to check if I was still beside her. And you, Lila? The name felt heavier on my tongue, reminder of what anchored me in this tempest. Just as I was about to speak again, a sharp gasp caught in Maya's throat, pulling me from my swirling thoughts. Look, she said, pointing ahead. There's an entrance. A door loomed ahead, half muffled by the debris, and instinctively I grabbed Maya's hand, a spark of new hope igniting in my chest. I started rushing toward it when I caught a flicker of movement to my left. I turned. In the thick of the debris there she was. My sister, fragile and small, crouched beneath the weight of fallen beams, her eyes wide and terrified, but still unyielding. Lila. My heart lurched, each beat a thunderous echo of my soul's despair and elation. Nat. I cried, rushing forward as grief and hope battled for dominance within me. Get her. Maya shouted, her voice slipping into the panic, urging me on, but just as I reached out, another tremor rocked the ground, and I stumbled, nearly losing my footing. I caught Nat's gaze, a flicker of understanding passing between us. In that moment, I realized it wasn't just the chaos that surrounded us, but a longing deeper than fear, a desire to find safety, belonging, strength amidst the uncertainty. The millionaire's silhouette appeared in the distance like a lighthouse in a storm. I felt the pull of his gaze, that inexplicable connection widening. "I'm coming for you," he shouted, and I willed my legs to move faster until my fingertips brushed against Nat's. "Hold on. I've got you," I cried, clasping her hand tightly. But just as I felt her warmth, the ruins above us groaned, surrendering to the chaos, and then the unthinkable happened. A heavy beam fell, crashing down with a force that reverberated through every cell of my being, sending dust and debris spiraling around us. The deafening roar that followed. I caught a fleeting glance of Maya's resolute determination before shadows swallowed her whole. No. I screamed, but the sound was lost in the cacophony. Life rushed at me like a tidal wave, and instinct took over. I threw myself toward my sister, shielding her with my body, feeling the sharp sting of despair overwhelm me. But where was the millionaire? Where was the strength I had clung to a heartbeat earlier? And then the world tilted, something heavy collided against my back, and darkness surged around us like an accompanying silence, filling in the void that scattered purpose and trust. I had no choice but to let go of everything, even hope, as I crumbled beneath the weight of uncertainty. The world around me slipped into a blurry haze. Consciousness flickered like a faulty light bulb, alternating between warmth and cold, familiarity and dread. I fought to grasp at the fleeting threads of reality, but every time I reached out, they disintegrated beneath my fingertips. "Lila?" A voice threaded through the dense fog, soft and hesitant, yet laced with undeniable urgency. I blinked slowly, struggling to focus. When I finally managed to pry open my eyes, confusion melted away into stark horror. I lay on a rough surface, battered by time and neglect. The overwhelming scent of dust filled my nostrils, accompanied by the rancid menace of decay. Shadows danced around me, wayward shapes shifting under the dim light filtering through cracked walls. Panic clawed at my throat. My surroundings felt like a tomb. "Nat," I choked out, each syllable an echo of my fear. I pushed myself up, the ache in my body sharp and consuming. "Nat." "Lila, over here," that voice called again, more insistent, and I whipped my head around. There she was, a fragile silhouette kneeling amongst the ruins of our once safe world, her face illuminated by a flickering light just beyond our reach. I staggered toward her, heart pounding in my ears. "What happened?" I rasped, trembling as I reached out, desperate for contact. She gripped my hand, strength surging through our connection. "I think we're trapped," Nat whispered, her voice breaking as tears glistened in her eyes. She was here, but I shuddered, swallowing nausea. The ghost of our frantic escape haunted me. "No, no," I murmured, unwilling to accept the implications of her words. She wouldn't just leave us. She couldn't. Nat's expression shifted, a flicker of foreboding shadowing her features. "There was debris, Lila. I don't know if she made it. We have to get out before more falls." The desperation in her voice echoed through my chest, igniting the fire of panic in my gut. Somewhere beyond these crumbling walls, chaos still reigned, and time was a relentless enemy. "But how?" I asked, looking around, my breath quickening. "What if we're stuck here? What if—" "Don't say that," Nat interjected fiercely, her small frame trembling. "We can't lose hope. If we focus, maybe we can find a way." I took in her determined face, and in that moment, frail sadness coalesced into something resolute. "You're right. We need to try." Together, we began crawling through the debris, seeking the faint glimmers of opportunity. Each movement brought fresh worry. The aftershocks underfoot threatened to swallow us whole again. The only sound, aside from our labored breathing, was the quiet ticking of our shared hope as we clawed our way through despair. After what felt like an eternity, we reached a shattered wall, the remnants of a door still clinging to its frame. Sunlight trickled through gaps, a golden promise amidst our static reality. We pressed our bodies against the rubble, breathing in sync as we conjured the strength to move. "On three," Nat whispered, steadying herself beside me. "1, 2, 3. With every ounce of effort, we pushed against the weight of the fallen stones. When the seam widened enough, I spotted a glimpse of freedom. My heart raced wildly beneath my ribs. But just as I surged forward, that voice called to me in a familiar depth that sent chills down my spine. "Lila." "Nat, is that him?" Nat exclaimed, her eyes widening. "Max," I shouted back, dread and hope intersecting like lightning in the storm cloud of my heart. "We're here." But as his figure came into view, bolstered by strength and purpose, another tremor ripped through the underground. The ground quaked menacingly, and the glint of sunlight blinked out, leaving us shrouded in darkness once again. "Lila." The urgency in Max's voice collided with the rumble of rock and stone descending around us. "Hold on," and then, without warning, I felt Nat's hand slip from mine, a swift and horrifying withdrawal that gripped my soul like a vice. I turned, horror spilling forth, ready to reach for her, but all that remained was a shadow coiling ominously beneath the wreckage. Nat. I screamed, piercing through the void as I felt the wall crash behind me, merciless and final. The last thing I saw was her face, panic etched into her features, as a loud collapse enveloped her entirely. "Lila." The world around me erupted into a cacophony of destruction. I stumbled back into Max's waiting arms, the heat of my urgency clashing with his strength. We turned and rushed to the last speck of sunlight, but every beat of my heart was drowned in Shadowsa tempest relentless in its pursuit. Just as we made a final bid for escape, a shudder rippled through the ground, and with it came a whisper, chilling and distinct. An echo that lingered like a ghost, wrenching my heart. "Your sister won't stay lost forever." My breath caught in my throat, each word branding into my soul like a curse, and as we squeezed through the narrow opening, only the weight of uncertainty loomed greater than the promise of reunion. But that promise, I feared, would cost more than I had ever imagined. The air was thick with dust as Max and I stumbled outside into a world stripped of its color. Shadows cloaked the horizon, a relentless army of despair no longer confined to the ruins we had barely escaped. The chaos unfurled around us, the distant sounds of sirens and destruction mingling with anguished cries, a haunting symphony underscoring our survival at a staggering cost. "Lila, we need to keep moving," Max urged, squeezing my shoulder gently, but an invisible vice tightened around my chest. My heart ached for Nat. Each beat echoed her name, each breath a silent plea for her return. "I can't just leave her," I mumbled, the words barely breaking free. Panic-fueled determination churned within, yet the fear of losing my sister felt insurmountable. "We'll find her," he promised, his voice steady, but filled with uncertainty. He didn't know, could never know what I carried in my heart, the specter of a fate written by darkness and separation. As we moved through debris and shattered memories, I caught glimpses of chaos, families searching for each other, a mother cradling her child against a broken wall, the horror etched into their faces, the last thread tying them to hope. It was in stark contrast to my own internal storm, which raged with fury and longing. A flicker of movement caught my eye. There was a figure kneeling amidst the rubble. I halted, heart seizing as the muted sunlight caught a shimmer of despair. The woman's hands sifted through the debris, uncovering remnants of what once was. "Please," I breathed, instinctively reaching toward her. "Have you seen a girl?" "Around 15, dark hair. She was with us." The woman's gaze met mine, a bereft expression threading across her features. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I haven't seen anyone." Her voice cracked, the weight of her own loss evident. "Lila," Max urged gently, urging me to move forward, but my feet felt glued to the ground. "Wait, please. What if I can help?" I asked desperately. "We could search together. There must be someone who knows something." "I have to find my son," she murmured, pulling away, her voice a quiet lament that cut through me like glass. I nodded helplessly as she shuffled toward the chaos, a losing battle etched onto her silhouette. And still, part of me wanted to chase after her, to ease her pain, to wield some sort of comfort even if my own heart felt hollow, but Max grasped my arm, guiding me away from that fading heartbeat. "Lila, we have to focus on finding Nat, right?" I whispered, a weight thudding against my chest as I forced myself to turn. Let's keep looking. As we wandered through the remnants of our lives, a small flicker of hope arose in unexpected kindness. An elderly man, torn and weary, handed me a canteen filled with water, his trembling hands speaking of resilience despite overwhelming loss. "Take this. Drink," he said, his eyes reflecting the warmth of human connection. "You need to stay strong." "Thank you," I replied, the gratitude spilling over. It was the first tangible kindness I had experienced since the world had unraveled. As I took a sip, the cool liquid refueled my spirit, fueling something deep within. "Hang in there, kid. You never know what lies ahead," he added before melting back into the tumult, his words weighing heavy in my heart. Yet as I walked alongside Max, the promise of hope grew blindsided by despair. I could feel the shadows tightening around me, clinging like a second skin, whispering accusations of my failure to protect Nat. Then, out of the chaos, a voice tore through the fog of my thoughts. "Lila." "Max." A frantic call that was unmistakable. "Maya?" I gasped, hope leaping in my chest. She burst through the haze, dirted but alive, the relief washing over me like a balm. "Thank God I found you both." She rushed forward, and instinctively we embraced, tethering ourselves together in that moment, threading our hearts with the fragile fabric of survival. The building, it collapsed. I thought she began, but words failed her. "We need to find Nat," I urged, gripping her shoulders tightly. "She's still inside, Maya. I can feel it." Her face darkened, and my insistent belief faltered as I caught the fear in her eyes. "Well, look, but Lila, there's something else." "What?" My heart raced, dread curling in my stomach. A shift in her gaze hinted at something darker. "I overheard some people. They mentioned a survivor group forming. They might be holding people captive." "Lila, they could have Nat," I interrupted, the truth crashing down like thunder. Then Maya's voice softened. "We have to get to safety first." "Safety? But what if they take her?" I felt the walls of control closing around my throat once more, choking the breath from my words. "I won't let them," Max promised, his jaw set in determination. But as Maya prepared to lead us away, the shadows crept back, deeper and more menacing. Yet a haunting thought lingered, gnawing at my insides like an insatiable hunger. The words of that shadowy presence whispered in my mind, over and over. "Your sister won't stay lost forever." Uncertainty clenched at my heart as we traversed the wreckage, edging toward the unknown. And while the bond between us radiated warmth, the yawning chasm of fear loomed larger. I wonder what truth awaited at the center of this darkness? Would we find Nat, or would this be the last stand against shadows that threatened to engulf us all? The sun melted low in the sky, painting it with hues of orange and deep crimson, casting ghostly shadows that danced along the ground. With every step we took, each heartbeat echoed louder, reverberating the truth of our frightened plight. I pushed back the rising wave of dread, clinging to the fragile tendrils of hope that Maya and Max offered me. "Over here." Maya shouted, her voice laced with urgency as she darted toward a narrow alleyway marked by fallen debris. "This might lead us around the perimeter." I followed, my heart pounding against my ribcage as I forced myself to focus. Every shadow flickered like a specter. Each corner we turned felt steeped in the potential for unbearable loss. Max walked closest to me, his presence a steady anchor against the storm brewing in my mind. "Stay close to me," he whispered, his eyes scanning the darkness ahead, but I could sense his own fears ruminating just beneath the surface. The alley opened up into a wider street, littered with scraps of yesterday, a child's stuffed bear half buried in rubble, a baseball cap smudged with dirt, broken glass twinkling like stars fallen from the sky. The remnants of families torn apart hovered over the ground we traversed. A deep ache settled in my chest. Memories flashed of vibrant laughter and carefree days shared with Nat, contrasting sharply with the present landscape of despair. "Is there a plan?" Maya pressed, breaking me from my reverie. Her words were a plea, and I felt the weight of my responsibility settle heavily upon my shoulders. "We can't wander aimlessly. We have to find out where these survivor groups are," I replied, forcing determination into my voice, despite the uncertainty etched into every line of my face. "If they're taking people, they might have her." We have to move fast, Max nodded, though doubt flickered in his gaze. I saw a couple of people earlier. They were talking about regrouping near the old train station, he suggested. Then let's go, I said, even as trepidation coiled in my gut. The station, with its towering structure now marred by the chaos, loomed ahead just beyond where the last sunlight lay. It was a pillar of strength that had withstood storms in the past, but now it felt like a siren song leading us toward a potential trap. As we approached the station, a slow trickle of survivors gathered nearby. Faces painted with exhaustion, they stirred around a makeshift campfire, the flickering light dancing in their eyes, hinting at residual hope amid despair. Stay low, I urged, instinctively stepping forward to eavesdrop on the conversations. Maybe someone here has seen her. What if they've already moved her? Max's voice trembled, holding back the undercurrents of his growing fear. The weight of the situation clung to us like a thick fog. Maya pulled me close. Let's not attract too much attention, she whispered. I nodded, my heart thumping louder with every step toward the gathering, but then a tall figure caught my eye, standing slightly apart from the group. An imposing man with sharp features and an air of authority. He observed the others with a predatory gaze, as if gauging their worth. The darkness pooled around him like a shroud, and a chill grazed my spine. What if we talked to him? I suggested, swallowing hard at the prospect. Lila, I don't think Max started, but I cut him off. If we're going to find Nat, we need to be bold. The thought of my sister being hurt or trapped spurred my determination. We can't sit idly by. With cautious steps, we approached the man. As I neared, he shifted, locking his gaze with Minna's stormy, piercing look that compelled me to stop. Can I help you? He said, his voice low, brimming with a mixture of curiosity and menace. I took a breath. The weight of hope and fear clashed inside me like thunder. We're looking for a girl. My sister. She might be among the lost. His eyes narrowed slightly, assessing, the silence elongating with the weight of my desperation. And if she is? He questioned, a thin smile curving at the edges of his lips like a taunt. Then we'll do what we can to get her back, I asserted, feeling the tension knot tighter in my chest. Brave words, girl, he replied, amusement lacing his tone, but the threat of danger loomed. Just remember, sometimes the lost are better left behind. A shudder coursed through me as I realized the implications of his words. The shadows behind him felt alive, swirling with dark intentions. My heart sank into the abyss as I grappled with my resolve. Suddenly, a commotion erupted from the gathered group. A shout pierced the air, sharp and shocking, propelling me backward as chaos unfurled like a wild wildfire. Lila! Maya screamed, grasping my arm, but the scene erupted into pandemonium. People scrambled, scattering in every direction. Stay with me, Max shouted, but before I could mirror his resolve, the tall figure stepped forward into the chaos with an unsettling grace. I could barely see what happened next, a blur of movement, shadows merging into one another, fear pulsing through the crowd. Then I noticed a flash of recognition on the man's face, a hint, a fleeting glimpse that sent chills dancing down my spine. And just as quickly as it had begun, the chaos began to subside. The man turned back to me, that same predatory look in his eyes now tinged with something else, an unsettling certainty, as though he knew more than he let on. Maybe she's closer than you think, he murmured, before disappearing into the throng, leaving behind an ambiguous sense of dread. As silence settled over the stunned crowd, my heart twisted in panic. The abyss of uncertainty opened wider before me, and I could only wonder, was Nat indeed out there, still waiting? Or was it too late already, the shadows having already claimed another victim? With every heartbeat, a new question rattled in my mind. What was this newfound connection he had hinted at, and what did it mean for the hope I still clung to? The air hung heavy with unease, wrapping around us like a thick fog. I could hardly swallow the sharp knot in my throat as Maya and Max remained close, their faces reflecting the same bewilderment that twisted inside me. The man's ominous words echoed, stirring thoughts that flickered between hope and despair. Was there something specific about Nat that he recognized? And even if I pressed onward, would it lead me to hear her deeper into danger? Did you hear that? Maya's voice trembled slightly as she gripped my arm tighter. What do you think he meant? I shook my head, unsure of anything anymore. In this chaotic world, clarity felt like a distant memory, but the urgency in her eyes ignited a flicker of determination within me. We have to find out what he knows, I whispered, more to myself than to her. Are you crazy? That guy looks like he's got a whole army behind him, Max countered, still scanning the area for signs of danger. Let's just get out of here. That's exactly what he wants, Max, I replied, frustration piercing my voice. We can't turn away. If he knows anything about Nat Lila. A startled voice broke into our conversation, pulling our attention to a small figure weaving through the chaos. It was Chloe, a girl we had once shared laughter with before the world had shattered. Her features were carved with worry, but as our eyes met, I saw a sliver of connection in her gaze. There you are. She gasped, rushing toward us. I thought I'd lost you. I heard things. What do you mean? I urged, every word dripping with dread. I overheard some of them, she began, but a sudden tremor gripped her voice as she glanced around nervously. They said there are meetings, secret deals. They know about survivors, about your sister. They said that the ones who are strong sometimes make choices that could change everything. Change what? Maya demanded, desperation clinging to her every word. Chloe bit her lip, hesitating as though wrestling with the implications of what she was about to say. To save people, they might have to give something up. Someone could be sent away. Chosen. My heart raced, the anxiety intermingling with a sense of impending doom. Chosen? What does that mean? I prodded, but the weight in Chloe's expression lingered. I couldn't get the whole story, but it's like a trade. They want something in exchange for others. I think if you want to find Nat, you might have to make a decision, she said in a shaky breath. Max frowned, moving closer to me. Lila, I don't like this. It sounds like a trap. We can't risk it, but the burning desire to find Nat clashed with the voice of reason. Chloe, where are these meetings? How do we get there? I pressed, reluctantly feeling the creeping lines of hope intertwine with fear. She pointed toward the outskirts of the camp. There's a warehouse down the road. After dark, they gather there. Listen, Lila, I don't want any of you to get hurt. These people aren't normal, they'll do anything to get what they want. Her warning sank deep, but the fire igniting within my chest flared brighter than the looming threat. For Nat, I could try. I would push through every fear holding me back. Thank you, Chloe. Please, if you can stay safe, I said, knowing the flicker of hope was precious, as fleeting as a candle in the wind. As we turned away, prayerfully seeking security amongst the rubble, a sudden loud voice called from behind us, "Stop!" A flash of terrified recognition coursed through me as the towering figure I'd noticed earlier emerged again, a smirk dancing at the corner of his mouth. My spine tingled, every instinct screaming that he was not a force to be reckoned with lightly. Going somewhere? He taunted, an unsettling calmness bound tightly around his intimidating frame. You must be quite desperate to step into the shadows. We're not afraid of you, I shot back, my voice shaking but resolute. I admire your courage, he said, stepping closer. But it takes more than bravery to survive in this twisted game. There are rules, and making choices is what distinguishes the strong from the weak. His words dripped with condescension, each syllable like ice piercing through all my bravado. Leave us alone, Max shouted, positioning himself protectively in front of me. But I can help you, the man continued, his tone shifting, hinting at an unnerving allure. Perhaps you're looking in all the wrong places. What if I could show you a way to find your sister? But there's a cost. Each heartbeat resonated louder with fear as I tried to decipher the dark currency that lurked within his proposition. Every choice felt like stepping closer to an abyss, but the possibility of finding Nat was a fire igniting the edges of my uncertainty. What do you want? I asked shakily. The question hung in the air, heavy with potential. Only your trust, dear girl, he said, leaning in, his voice smooth and dangerous. And perhaps a little favor down the line. After all, in this world, the only thing harder than surviving is knowing what you're willing to sacrifice. I felt warmth pooling in my eyes, the possibility of hope tinged with the poison of desperation. As his figure loomed over me, a chilling realization washed over me. To find Nat, I might have to tread the line between light and dark, trading the safety of my soul for a glimmer of love lost in the shadows, and just as I was about to respond, a deafening explosion echoed through the camp, shaking the ground beneath our feet. A plume of dust rose in the distance, swallowing the fading sun and plunging the world into uncertainty once more. With hearts racing, we exchanged terrified glances, knowing that whatever lay ahead would test us like never before. And in that moment, surrounded by chaos and choices, the truth hung heavily in the air. Sometimes, you must leap into darkness to find your way back to the light. But at what cost? As the dust settled around us like the remnants of a crumbling dream, shapes danced through the ashen haze, obscured figures rushing toward the source of the explosion. My heart hammered in my chest, a desperate thrumming that drowned out the chaos. The ground felt unstable beneath me, as if the world itself had been rocked off its axis. Maya, Max, we need to move, I shouted, my gut churning with an urgency I couldn't ignore. I could sense the heavy weight of fate pressing down on us, thickening the air, while shadows loomed around every corner, both familiar and strange. The looming figure had momentarily vanished, swallowed by the confusion of terrified screams and fleeing bodies. Where to? Max cried, his voice rising above the din, eyes darting this way and that for an escape route. The tension between fear and determination was palpable, toward the warehouse. I pointed, even as my mind wrestled with the implications of heading deeper into danger. If we find those meetings, we might learn what they know about Nat. But what about that guy? What if he's leading us right into a trap? Max countered, gripping my arm. His worry was palpable, manifesting in the tightness of his hold. Maya. I turned to her, desperate for her support. We can't turn back now. Nat is out there, and the closer we get, the better chance we have to bring her home. Well, go, but we have to stick together, she said, her voice steadying as she faced the challenge with renewed resolve. We can't let fear dictate our moves. Just then, a figure brushed past us, Chloe, her face streaked with dirt and panic. I overheard more. She gasped before she caught her breath. They want to find strong individuals for a new leader, someone who can unite the survivors. What does that have to do with us? I asked, pausing for a heartbeat. Net, they think she's one of them, Chloe whispered, eyes wide with the weight of her words. She's special. They're looking for people like Hera Savior. I am not letting them take her. My voice quivered, a roar of defiance punctuating the uncertainty that cascaded within me. What do we need to do? Chloe shook her head, lip trembling. I don't know, but they're taking people away. The ones they choose. They said they'd announce the selected ones tonight. The thought clawed at Meth's idea of choosing who would remain and who would be lost in the shadows together, as a fundamental part of this new world. A bitter chill settled over me, thickening the anxiety wrapping around my heart. Then we have to hurry, Maya said, eyes blazing with purpose. If we can reach them before they begin that selection, we'll know what's going on. As we ventured further, weaving through frightened throngs, I felt the flicker of hope mingle with the chill of darkness that the towering figure had invoked. We surfaced at the edge of the warehouse, the squat building shrouded in a veil of secrecy and untold risks. Disregarding the unsettling sounds echoing from within, we ducked behind a rusty barrel. Max peered through a broken window, tension etched on his face. When he turned back to us, his expression was grave. There are people inside, they're making lists. They look serious, men in black clothing, he whispered, dread creeping into the edges of his voice. I don't like it. It's like a bidding room. What if we could gather intel on what they plan? I suggested, a spark igniting with each word. We might gain an advantage. Maya nodded but sent a wary glance in my direction. And if they catch us, then we fight, I declared, the fervent loyalty to Nat overshadowing all hesitation. We don't let fear imprison us. We owe it to her to see this through. One by one we nodded, the unspoken promise linking our hearts together as we stepped into the shadows of the warehouse. Inside, the air was thick and musty, punctuated by furtive whispers. The atmosphere crackled with tension. Tables laid with papers formed a web, mapping out plans and intentions we had yet to uncover. Suddenly, a booming voice interrupted our stealth. You think you can just slip in like thieves? It was the man from earlier, a dark silhouette against the scattered glow of lanterns. I warned you about prying into affairs beyond your understanding. My breath caught in my throat, but adrenaline flooded my veins. What have you done with my sister? I demanded, firing every ounce of courage I could muster. A predatory smile curled his lips. She's in the midst of something grander than you can imagine. And she's not the only one who is special. His voice resonated ominously, as if teasing some truth reserved for the chosen yet. Let her go. Max shouted, inching forward. That's the beauty of it, dear boy. She's not just yours to save, he said, the edge of contempt sharpening his tone. You'll soon learn that every choice comes at a cost. Are you willing to pay it? The ground trembled beneath us again, as if echoing the mounting tension. My heart raced, each breath mingling excitement with dread, sensing the stakes rising higher by the second. And just as my resolve hardened, the building shook violently with another explosion, this one closer than the last, rattling the very foundations of our hope. I felt the weight of everything we had fought for, everything I had sacrificed, slipping through my fingers like sand. In that moment of chaos, the shadows shifted, and from the depths of the corridor emerged another figure, Nat, weary but unmistakably alive, her eyes wide with fear and knowing that deepened the chasm of desperation that stretched within me. Lila, she cried, reaching a hand out as the chaos descended around us. You shouldn't have come, but before I could reach for her, the man's voice sliced through the chaos. Now, the time for choices is upon you, he called, wicked delight threading through his tone. Will you save your sister, or will you lose her to the dark for good? The weight of the world rested on my shoulders, the line between salvation and sacrifice blurring furiously before my eyes. A revelation lurked beneath the surface, echoing the fragments of decisions yet unmade, a bitter truth shrouded in the promise of hope, lingering like smoke in the air, ready to consume us all. The shadows closed in around us, each heartbeat echoing the gravity of the man's ultimatum. My breath hitched in my throat, a visceral pang of fear seizing my heart. Nat stood there, her face pale yet resolute, embodying every ounce of strength and vulnerability I'd ever known. It was an unimaginable force pulling me toward her, but the sinister figure standing between us morphed fear into urgency. Lila, don't. Nat pleaded, her voice cutting through the thick tension that clouded my thoughts. This is a trap. I felt a wild surge of emotion ocean deep within me. Behind Nat, the warehouse trembled from another violent explosion, kicking up dust that swirled like dark memories closing in on my very being. You don't understand. They'll take you. We have to fight. I shouted, eyes darting back to the instinctual predator lurking ahead. His smirk widened, a cruel crescent moon in a night filled with chaos. Fight? But that's where the choice becomes critical. Life itself is one big negotiation. He leaned closer, his breath a frosty whisper piercing through my courage. Are you ready to negotiate what you truly hold dear? The gravity of his words saturated every breath I took. What would it cost to save Nat? Was I truly willing to make a pact with shadows to secure her safety? The thought festered deep within, twisting and turning. Nat, I called, desperate for clarity. We'll find a way out together. No, we can't risk it. There's no telling what these monsters are capable of. She hurled the words back just as a shudder plunged through the warehouse, sending a wave of dust cascading down upon us. I felt it fall like time running out, every moment unraveling like fragile yarn slipping through my fingers. What are you waiting for? The man's voice sliced through the air, mocking. Either save her, or watch her fade into the dark along with everything else you hold precious. As I focused on Nat, the world around us fell silent, every breath frozen in time. I knew what was at stake. I'd fought for her too long to falter now. Yet, doubt reared its head, gnawing away at my resolve. I won't let them take you. I cried. My voice trembled, a fierce storm of fear and determination as I stared into the abyss of our uncertain fate. With that, the shadows splintered, revealing something I hadn't noticed before, an influx of figures surrounding the man. Weary faces etched with the same fear that coursed through me. They were lost souls drawn into this twisted negotiation, caught within the crossfire of a world that had become cruelly transactional. Enough of this. The man barked, growing impatient. The choice is yours, Lila. Save the girl who will lead us all, or let her slip away. Panic clawed at me, each pulse a countdown against time, until something ignited within. Righteous anger coursed through my veins, fueled by the injustice trembling before my eyes, stealing lives like it was an everyday affair. No. I bellowed, allowing the fiery resolve to envelop me. My eyes flicked to Nather, body coiled with fear yet burning with determination. I felt our shared connection, the deep-rooted love that bound us together. You'll never take her, not without a fight. I refuse to let you dictate our fate. My words created ripples. The words were grounding yet liberating. And at that moment, I knew I could either cower in shadows or let the light blaze a path through the dark. The man chuckled, an unsettling melody enveloped by darkness. Bravery can be foolhardy. Careful, dear girl, your light could snuff out if you are not cautious. But I didn't care. With a sudden force, I lunged toward Nat, desperate to cover her with my body from the man's flickering malevolence. Stay close, I cried. We'll find a way out, no matter what. The cacophony of chaos spun around us, enveloping us like a storm. I could sense the stirring of uncertainty in the air. Every whisper carried the weight of our decisions. Amidst the turmoil, I heard the rising resolve of the gathered souls united in a single moment. Fear turned to empowerment, echoing a promise that we would not be mere victims in this game of darkness. And in that moment of clarity, a wave of light illuminated the shadows that caged us. There was unity in our fight, an awakening that rendered the man's grip on our fates impotent. My heart swelled with purpose, refulgent flame ignited by the bonds of love and defiance. Listen, I shouted, my voice rising above the din. We won't be pawns in this game. We will forge our own path together. His eyes darted around angrily as whispers of determination swept through the crowd, igniting the hearts of everyone present. I could see that we were all connected by the fraying lines of fate, threads woven together by grief, but resilient in spirit. In that moment, I saw a reflection of Nat's resilience mirrored upon others, their eyes twinkling with the fire of hope. The man's facade began to crack, revealing a glimmer of insecurity beneath the surface. You think you can disrupt everything? You don't understand what's at stake. He hollered, but the venom in his words dulled as our strength planted roots within the chaos. Not this time. Nat cried, her voice intertwining with mine as she stepped beside me, bold and unwavering. Together, we rise. Max echoed, taking a stance behind us as Maya stood resolute. We formed an unbreakable wall against the impending storm, fueled by the truth we dared to uphold. And then, emboldened by our unity and love, we surged forward. I felt an inexplicable rush of energy. We became a force of nature, pulsing and powerful as we broke through the shadows that sought to claim us. The air around us crackled, electrified by our combined determination. Not one more step. The man shouted, desperation slicing through his mask, unable to contain the dread as we approached. He tried to push us back with words, spells of fear, but they bounced off an invisible shield fueled by hope. Find your strength, believe in each other, Nat said, the light emanating from her heart illuminating the darkness that once loomed over us. And with one determined movement, we pressed together, shoulders squared and hearts aligned, crashing against the tide of fear that sought to keep us apart. It was a wild symphony, bravery merging to create harmony within the storm. The man howled, his power faltering as the walls of uncertainty began to crumble around him. He staggered back, caught off guard by the sheer force of our united front. And just like that, his power shattered, dissipating into the air like mist vanishing amid the lightning of our newfound hope. With a final step forward, we triumphed, crashing through the confines of the shadows that had threatened our existence. When we emerged on the other side, the air felt electric. Freedom coursed through our veins like a revelation of light. My world spun steadily back into focus, and without a moment's hesitation, I turned to Nat, Brushing dust from her cheek and cradling her face in my hands, in her eyes, I saw a fierce fire burning brighter than the chaos we had escaped. "You're here. You're safe." I breathed, gratefulness flooding every corner of my heart. The shadows pulling at my identity faded, leaving space for love to breathe. "I thought I lost you. You could never lose me," she replied, smiling through tears. It was a testament of resilience, the kind that whispered the unrelenting truth that would guide us through the darkness. My heart soared, intertwining with hope stronger than the pain we had endured. No matter the cost, we had intertwined our fates, forged a connection that outshone even the deepest shadows. We were survivors, together as we ventured into the dawn of this new world, where uncertain paths awaited, but also endless possibilities. As we stepped into the light, a light that had once seemed forlorn, I held Nat's hand tighter, each pulse echoing a promise of love and resilience beneath the shadows that still loomed at the fringes. Together we whispered the truth of our journey into the winds swirling around us, a fierce defiance against despair, forging a new destiny. In the shadows, we found our strength, and in love, we forged our path. With those words, we moved forward, encased in the warmth of beginnings intertwined, letting the echoes of hope and connection guide us through whatever darkness may come. Forever bound, forever free.